So this is our lesson on the power of advertising. And so basically when we were constructing our lesson plan, we decided that we should probably do 10th grade just because more of the standards that were listed in the previous lesson plan seemed to be geared towards 10th graders. And so they kind of, when we were going through like our central focus of the unit and we were all doing like our separate lesson plans before we came together and combined them and did one lesson plan, we kind of realized that we all kind of had something different, but in a like general way, all of our ideas could mash up into one lesson plan. I believe John and I had very similar things in our lesson plan, but also different things in our lesson plan. I will say one thing that we really tried to focus on were our California State Common Core standards, which were kind of hard to find when looking at this lesson plan, just because a lot of it was about evaluating or identifying or recognizing like advertising campaign strategies. So going through that, some things that I had trouble understanding were content focus and essential literacy strategy focus, which now I kind of get more. So we kind of put students will utilize their prior knowledge of advertising campaigns to identify and evaluate persuasive strategies used by the tobacco industry. And then so content focus, how should we make decisions about regulating smoking in public places? After completing this lesson, students will be able to identify strategies used in media to inform and persuade various audiences and evaluate the presentation. So going through our lesson plan, there were 2 worksheets already presented within the previous lesson plan, so we kind of used those, and we figured that a lot of them were formal formal worksheets because they would be turned in and graded, but they were also there's also one summative worksheet that kind of summed up everything that was learned throughout the lesson, and we kind of focused on just one language function would be to evaluate, because that's what students are doing towards the end when they write their paper. They're evaluating various advertising strategies. So we decided to add some vocabulary that might be needed, the discourse, which we found was easier to understand than syntax, our resources and materials, student prior knowledge. So with student prior knowledge, we decided to add a new skill. So students will be acquiring a new skill in which they will be able to evaluate misleading content. And that was based off of the advice of our veteran 3S Beer. So our transition, our hook was what we found within the lesson. Modeling, guided practice, and closure for our lesson plan. So our lesson plan was pretty much how are we going to use this information and put it into these boxes that will guide our lesson and help us through it. And then we also tried to think of like who our students were when thinking about our lesson plan. Like, do we have IEPs? Do we have ELs? Do we have 405s? Do we have struggling readers? And I think that also helped in our development of our lesson plan and deciding how we were going to scaffold and what we were going to do to help those students. And I think this overall group lesson plan gave us a lot of insight on how we would be able to conduct our own individual lesson plans once we start really looking at drafting that and how we can help our students through scaffolds and how we can grab their attention when introducing a new unit or lesson. And yeah, so that's kind of the thought process we had when developing our lesson plan. What we can do best to benefit the students was number 1 priority for us, and our standards matching up with our activities was also another one. And yeah.